Hey everybody, Brian Jackson here with another episode of Friends of Brry. And yes, I have a broken arm, but we don't have to talk about that. It's doing a lot better. No cast, no surgery needed. But more importantly, we have a great guest for you today. She's probably one of the sweetest people I know, no pun intended. But she's the owner of Sugar Bat Sweet Shop, which is here in St. Charles, Missouri, as well as Little O's Soda Fountain or Little O's Fountain. We'll ask her which variation it is. But anyways, her name is Jackie Huebbe, and today we're just going to talk about creativity and how she came to become the cookie lady, at least in my life. So, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Jackie. How are you today, Jackie?
I'm doing awesome. How are you?
I'm fantastic. I mean, been better, but
Well, yes.
so
But you
broken
look
bones
awesome. Your arm
are
is
no joke,
moving.
but sorry again.
Yes.
So how is your I know we're like kind of at the end of quarantine. We're still like social distancing. We're still in that weird phase. But how has life been for you?
So it's been a weird mix of things. I feel a little guilty because quarantine from a personal standpoint has been amazing. It's been the best. I am such an introvert. I love being by myself. I love like the lack of human interaction. I do really well when left to my own devices. So from a personal standpoint, quarantine has been awesome. For the first month and a half, it was a bit of a bummer just because I wasn't able to see my nephews. They live out in Arnold, Missouri. The older one, Emmett, is 5, and the baby Eli is 2. And they're like my best friends, and I see them once a week, and we spend the whole day together. And so, yeah, I call it my favorite tiny humans. So it was a bummer to not get to see them, but I've had some weird health stuff. And so we just wanted to be super safe and make sure that there was no chance of me catching it from my brother in law, who is an essential worker. So we wanted to make sure that that was all okay. And once we kind of got all of that under control and he started working from home, and we realized that there wasn't a risk of me, catching it from
Mhm.
them, I'm able to see them again now. So now that I have them and I've got my husband and I've got my dogs, it's been awesome. Um, from the business standpoint, it's been really tough. We're doing curbside at SugarBot that's been going really well. I so appreciate everybody that has been ordering things from us. We're on an every other weekend schedule at SugarBot, and then we just started an every other weekend schedule at Little O's. So we're doing SugarBot one weekend, Little O's the next, and going back and forth. And the Little O's one hasn't caught on quite as well as I would have liked it to just yet, but I think it's still new, and with other things opening and things going on, we just really want to make sure that it's sustainable and that I'm not going to bring all of our employees back just to have to lay them off again if there is a second wave, or if things don't reopen how they're supposed to. So we're just kind of taking a back seat and making sure that whatever decision we make, we're not going to have to go back on it again.
Gotcha. Well, I'm sorry to hear the business is still a little bit. We don't. I mean, I think a lot of people have been very well recognizing that small businesses need our our help and stuff, and I think it's really cool that you're still offering curbside pickup. So everybody can get their sweet fix. Um, and like I think that's a really cool and stuff that everybody's rallying to make sure those small businesses are still getting supported. It's always a tight spot when you have more employees and stuff. You're like, so I'm with you on that, and like sorry to hear it's still like such a juggle and stuff, and but I'm glad you enjoyed quarantine as an introvert, from an extrovert to an introvert.
Yes. So sorry about quarantine for you.
Yeah, nah, we'll settle that beef later. But so thank you so much for being on here. And for those, we mentioned your two businesses, the Sugar Bot and the Little O's. And so for those who just who have never been there, how can you describe, besides awesome, how can you describe each one?
So, SugarBot is my business from the very start. So, I founded it in 2012, and then we've kind of gone from there. So, I started the business out of a commissary, and then we moved to a storefront in Webster, and then now we're in St. Charles, which is the permanent storefront. We've been in St. Charles about 5.5 years now. And so we specialize here in childhood favorites, better than you remember them, is our tagline. So we do a lot of like brownies and cupcakes and cake pops, and a lot of those, the things that most people, when they want something sweet or when they're wanting like a treat, it's the stuff that most people think about. So we don't do a lot of the like fancier pastries. We don't do bread. We don't do donuts, any of that stuff. It's more just kind of traditional home style American bakery with high quality ingredients. So we're using nicer things than I certainly used to bake as a kid. So no Hershey's. Everything is a higher quality, which I think really sets us apart. I know we're one of the last bakeries, at least in our area, that still uses pure vanilla extract. So we've got that going for us too. And then Little O's we purchased in 2018. So we're the third owner of Little O's. So we've had it, this is our third summer, I think, that we're going into right now. And down there, we've decided to kind of take on SugarBot's motto and move it down there. So when we purchased it, they were just using ice cream that you could get from anywhere. There wasn't really anything special about it. The general sort of theme of everything was a mishmash. There was no clear direction, no clear path. The staff didn't have uniforms. Like it was a hot mess. So we took it over and we gutted it and turned it into a true like 1920s, 1930s style soda fountain. We have a lot of antique equipment that we use. And then last year we got our dairy manufacturing license. So we're actually manufacturing the ice cream on site now. And so we're the only, as far as I know, we're the only ice cream parlor in St. Charles that's actually making the ice cream on site. So yeah, that's kind of our deal.
Yeah, I've actually been to Little O's a couple of different times, and when it was the previous owners, when it was you, and I really like the new aesthetics and feel of it. I feel like I'm out of place in the sense of like I need to go back home and get my 1920s outfit on, and feel like I'm gonna be back in the roaring 20s. But no, you guys did very well with that flip.
Well, thank you. Hopefully it doesn't make you feel too uncomfortable to come back. We wanted it to be nice, but everybody is very t-shirts and jeans.
And then as far as Sugar Bat Sweet Shop, as I've been there, I've tried your gooey butter cake. It was actually the first time I ever had gooey butter cake, believe it or not. I've lived in St. Louis for 29 years, and I've never had gooey butter cake. And, well, sorry, I was 28 when I tried it. But I was like trying to sneak down to see if you were in there and just like hang out because I had just spoken at Vision, because you're part of Vision class of 2020, Perfect Vision. And I just wanted to see what you were offering. And then the nice lady who was there was like, hey, try some of this. I was like, okay, I'll take this. And I enjoyed it.
That's awesome. I'm glad to hear that you enjoyed it. I was so bummed that I missed you. I think I was at Vision the day that you came, because I was at something, I'm almost positive I was at another Vision Day, whatever day it was that you swung by. So I missed you.
Actually, no, you in Las Vegas. You were gambling.
Oh, no, I was
No.
not gambling. I'm terrified of gambling. And that's probably something for another time. Um, but no, if I was in Vegas, I was there for IBIE, which is the International Baking Something Exposition. But it's all about it's a big equipment show, where you can go to meet with like potential vendors and see the equipment that is coming out and the new kind of the new stuff that gets updated and just the changes in the industry, and get a lot more education about how to grow your business and how to do things better. So yeah, if I was in Vegas, I was having my brain just melt out of my ears, while I learned everything that there is for baking.
Gotcha. But you have not always, where I'm kind of going with this is like, um, you have not always been a baker, correct?
Correct. So, well, yes and no. So, in my heart, I've always been a baker.
Yeah,
Um,
did you have the little easy bake oven?
yes, I did have an easy bake oven. I don't remember it being especially good, but we did have one. And then, growing up, I baked a lot, just with box mixes, nothing like super special. Um, but then from kind of middle school, I started to really take an interest in it. I started to take an interest in more of the science side of it, and kind of the experimentation. And then in high school, I would start to bake cakes for, friends and family. My younger sister actually got really into the decorating side. And so I would make cakes and she would decorate them, and it was fun. It was a good kind of bonding thing for us. And then when it came time to pick a college major, I really wanted to do something pastry related, and my parents talked me out of it. They're both in the trades, and so they were like, you'll work long hours, you'll break your back, manual labor is not an easy way, it's not great pay all of the time necessarily. And they were completely right on all of that. But it's what I love to do. So I ended up listening to my parents, and I went to college, and I got my first degree was in photography. And then I ended up taking some design classes and really liked that. And so I stayed and got a second degree in graphic design, and then advanced to do my bachelor's in graphic design and marketing. And then I left and I worked for the man, and I did the corporate thing for about 10 years, and I hated it. And I would come home and bake. And, it wasn't where I wanted to be. And so my last corporate job that I had an awesome boss that kind of helped guide me through and realize that I could go if I wanted to, and that, there were ways to kind of find a path. And so I ended up doing that, and I haven't looked back since. So it's been awesome.
So, I mean, you could have been a baker anyway, but how did you, I guess, get that creative? How did you feel like you could do, like, hey, how did you figure out you can go into business? And then two, how did you believe in yourself enough to be like, I can do this?
So I think, as far as the being able to believe in myself thing, I've always been really stubborn. So people saying like, oh, well, that's not a good idea. Like, you're not going to make very much money at that, or you're not going to be able to make a living at that, of course, always makes me like, whatever, screw you guys, I will do it. So that was kind of the desire to prove people wrong. But then a lot of it too, because as much as I am stubborn, I'm also very logical on that side of things. And I wanted to make sure that if I was going to do it, that I wasn't going to fail, because I didn't want to leave room open for anybody to say I told you so. So from there, I started while I was still working in corporate life. I started working evenings and weekends at cafes and kind of figuring out, um, how they did things, what they were doing. And then I ended up actually going to culinary school, which was really helpful for me. So I added that third degree in, and that really helped me figure out a lot of the business side of things that I wasn't necessarily seeing working for other people. But because I had worked for so many other people, it did really help me realize the ways that the businesses that I was working for, the reasons why they weren't maybe as successful as they could have been, things that they were doing wrong in their production or that kind of thing. So it really was just a mix of, that formal education and then the experience of working for somebody else that really helped me realize that I did have a good business plan. I could do this. I was, smart enough and talented enough to be able to make it happen. And I still knew, obviously, even now I still have so much to learn. But it definitely helped me realize that I knew enough that I could make it work, and then the rest I could pick up as I went.
Doesn't it feel good? Doesn't it feel good to prove like people wrong or like actually get to that place where you're like, okay, we're doing this? Because your job is similar to mine. Like I was working at Chick-fil-A using my college degree in marketing. And I just woke up one day and I was like, I don't like chicken that much, But what I do like is people. And that's one of the reasons I'm here. But on the flip side, I was just like, yeah, I can't do this. But every day I was at that job, I was just like, I always felt like there was somebody somewhere else I was supposed to be. And now that, I made that jump and said, okay, I'm done. I don't feel like there's somewhere else I'm supposed to be. Like everything like naturally just like comes in life, when we take those big leaps and stuff. And it's scary, right?
Oh, it's terrifying.
Terrifying.
Yes.
But real quick question, my friend Omar Maldonado wants to know what your favorite thing to bake is.
So that it changes so often for me. But probably most consistently, my favorite thing to make is the sugar cookies. They're so tedious. It's the only thing that I've never passed off to any employee. I've always been the only one that does them because they're kind of precious and I just keep them to myself. But so I would say definitely my favorite thing to make is the sugar cookies. But my favorite thing to eat is the brownies.
Mm.
Yeah, two different categories.
Have you tried like combining the two together?
Yes, actually. I was getting ready to say no, but yet I have. So we do offer a chocolate sugar cookie that it's like a decorated brownie, and they are so good. But there's two problems with them. The first problem is that they haven't caught on yet. So I've made them a couple times. Like the people that get them are like, geez, these are the best. But it's hard to convince people away because most people get the sugar cookies because they don't like chocolate, which is a whole nother thing that I can't understand. But the second dangerous part of the chocolate ones is that because they don't sell as well, there are almost always leftovers, and then I end up being the one that eats them, which like isn't the best thing that I could be doing. Because the temptation is real. And so I try to like only have, one dessert a day. And so that is hard for me because if there's two left and I eat one, then like I can't just leave that one lonely. And so, the obvious answer is that then I should eat that one. And then it's just a slippery slope because, then, well, there's only one of these things left. And so it gets dangerous to keep them on hand. So they're kind of like a once in a blue moon thing.
Gotcha. Well, if you ever, I know a lot of people who like sweets. So I'm not a sweet. The funny, craziest thing about this is I'm not like the biggest sweets guy, right? Like I like to indulge every once in a while. I like them when I can, but um, but there was just something about that gooey butter cake that I really wanted to try it and stuff. But I'm saying is I know some people, so if you need me to like become like a wholesaler, being like maybe like the middleman of the secret sweet
The
drug
sweet
dealer,
treat. That's
like I could be like, hey, come there's an alley right between Sugar Bot Sweet Shop and something else. I just like DM from there, being like, hey, you like chocolate? You like sugar cookies? I got you. Come on.
come on down. I got some stuff in my jacket.
So what why is obviously because you as a baker you have to get creative and like creating new products, but also like putting your own spin on things. But like why is creativity um so important in your personal life?
So I think for me, the primary answer of truly why it's more important is almost a little bit boring. But it's because there's not a huge profit margin in baked goods. So anything that you have that's a loss hurts your bottom line so much more, than somewhere that has things that sit on a shelf, in retail. Like a shirt is a shirt. It's great. It's going to last forever. It's not that you need necessarily to move so many shirts per day because your product is going to spoil, where for us, that is the case. So one of the biggest things that creativity really helps me in is coming up with things that nobody else is doing, because obviously, the less competition you have, the easier. But it's also helped so much in us really being able to eliminate the waste, because I've come to figure out that there are so many things that I can do with stuff that would otherwise not be a sellable product. Um, there are some things that are amazing that have gotten to be popular that don't work with fresh product or with the product that's been made that day. So some things like cake pops, which have gotten hugely popular. So we bake the cakes for the cake pops. We don't use like day old cupcakes or anything like that. But you have to let the cake set and dry out for a day. So it essentially has to be stale cake to make a cake pop that works and that has the right consistency. Um, it's the same. We do like truffles with cookies that we've dried out that have ground up. And so some of that stuff basically makes it so that we're not ever losing product. We're just it's in this form when it's baked the same day, and the next day we're able to turn it into something else that sometimes is more delicious um, than the initial, where like our cake pops sell faster than our cupcakes, which is funny just because it's like those take that extra day to make because you have to let it sort of age. Um, and so some of those things they actually sell better as something that, is an idea that originally we were using just to be able to get rid of product that we can't sell as its original form. Um, so I think that is really kind of the biggest way that creativity keeps us afloat, is just to always be thinking about ways that you can mix it up, because what could be a loss is then something even better. And then, with cake pops or cookie truffles or that kind of thing, it's something that then now those are items that people come in looking for because they know that we'll have them. And then, it's always kind of a bummer when it's like, oh, sorry, we didn't have any day old cookies, so we couldn't make this thing now. So then it's a weird position to be in where you're actually baking off, hoping for a loss so that you can create the product the next day.
I am glad. I kind of like the cake pops when I've had like a couple.
Yeah.
I'm eating day old cake, you know. I like fresh cake, but I also like them, you know. So
Yes.
that's amazing. So sometimes creativity isn't just about like being creative in the now. It's actually being creative gets you to a place where you have to plan and you can plan ahead. And like, oh, just because this cake's bad today doesn't mean that it's not a gorgeous cake pop tomorrow.
Right. Yes, that is
I kind of
exactly.
want a shirt that says that. Like, hey, bad cakes today, gorgeous cake pop tomorrow.
Yes, yeah, it just hasn't found its true form yet.
There you go.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I think that's really, really cool. Like we can plan. Creativity just doesn't have to be for now. It's something that we can plan and stuff. But I mean, more for you personally. Like I get that's the way of baking, but I just want to know, like you. I mean, you said that you were making these cake. You started baking in middle school. You baked in high school. You know what? Um, I guess what do you feel when you get into the zone? You know.
So I think usually I just feel so much more comfortable when I'm able to kind of go off on my own and create things really with my own vision. And I feel like something that I've learned in the last probably 2 years or so is that so many people now with Pinterest and with everything else spend so much time looking at what other people do and try to get inspiration, um, within their own field. Where for me, I try to look outside of my field and get inspiration from things that are not food related at all. And I think it's that challenge of, here is this thing that most people look at that would not say relate at all to baked goods. And I'm forever, clothing is the biggest thing for me. I love walking through like the children's department of clothing stores or of like Target or whatever, because there are so many little characters and the ways that they're using color and just seeing all of that. I love being able to think about things that are not food related, because then there's no expectation that it's going to transfer perfectly. And so giving yourself that room to have inspiration in something but to not have to duplicate something at the start is huge for me. I don't know if that
Uh,
answers that exactly.
yeah, no, that answers. I think like I mean, I personally like what you said about the Pinterest though, is because I think oftentimes we um can go on that and be like and see Pinterest can be a great tool for creativity, right? It can spark something. And I think sometimes people use it as a reliance that they don't feel like they're creative enough and they don't feel like they can do that. And so then so Pinterest isn't where you go to get creative, it's where your creativity goes to die. But I like that next part that you said is like the children's department. That gets you excited, and that's what you're seeing all these characters and colors that play and stuff, and um, that makes you feel alive inside, and so you get into your zone and feel so comfortable and right where you're at. And yes, you are. I mean, we've had pastries and everything since sugar was founded, right? So there's a lot of original things that we can do, but it's important to have our own spin on it. And I think that's important for anything in life. Like there's always going to be accountants, there's always going to be lawyers, there's always going to be, people who work at stores, people who are entrepreneurs and stuff. But the challenge is how can you do it a little bit differently? How can you take one thing I love about you, Jackie, is that, and I keep on hearing this, is like you keep on saying, I'm learning this. I'm learning.
Oh, yes, because I am learning still. I mean, there's I'm surprised every single day by the stuff that I don't know.
Do
Every single
you
day.
Do you ever like learn? Do you try to like learn one thing a day?
I feel like setting out to learn one thing a day, like to make that your mission, almost doesn't work for me because then you start seeking things where I feel like it happens more organically by just sort of the people that I surround myself with, um, in the ways that I kind of work or the podcast that I listen to, um, with more of that it's just almost, I don't feel like I have to seek it out. I feel like it just happens because of how I've set up my life, if that makes sense.
It makes perfect sense. I think that I was saying like we don't have to intentionally like go out and learn. I just know I just surprise myself as well. You know, like a lot of people are like, hey, if you want the jack of all trades, like that's Bry. Like go get Bry, and he'll tell you a little bit about everything, and you know enough just to be dangerous.
Yes.
Um, but I blow my mind every day. Like I'm just like, wow, okay, I now know that. And there's like a certain topic, you know, that I get to explore and stuff. And I don't always set out to learn something new every day. But I always do once I do learn something new, I always do say, you learn something new every day. All
Yes.
right. There we go. And I give myself a pat because I think learning is extremely important, especially to creativity. But learning is extremely important is because there's a theory called the Dunning-Kruger effect. Have you ever heard of this?
It
So,
sounds familiar, but I couldn't define it for you.
so the theory is that the more we do things in life, the dumber we actually become doing them.
Oh,
And
yes.
so when something keeps us on our feet, it actually keeps that the messages and the things that we know and the knowledge very fresh and very applying to life. But that's one way of why learning something new is. But I mean, if you ever want to adapt in anything in society, you're gonna have to unlearn and you're gonna have to relearn and continue to do that because A, it's a humbling thing, but B, it shows that you're actively listening and taking in information and not sitting on this holier than thou throne that says like, hey, I can do it better. Like we can get there. We can get to I can do it better. But why don't you listen to how they do it? You know, like watch an episode or two of Cake Boss and be like, you're probably like, oh, Cake Boss, whatever. But they actually can teach you some things, and then you can actually go and make, I don't know, Cake Boss too, right? We're gonna make it happen. I got connections.
I don't know that I'm fit for TV, but I appreciate it. I didn't mean to choke you up there. But yeah, I don't know that I'm fit for TV. And I will say I have never seen an episode of Cake Boss.
Okay.
But
Me neither. I have not.
oh, perfect then. I'm really not a TV person. Like I know so many people are like, oh my gosh, quarantine, like let's watch all of this stuff. And I can do at most like maximum TV watching is like an hour every other day.
So an episode of Tiger King every other day. Got it.
And so we did during quarantine, my husband Mark and we did watch Tiger King. But I had originally listened to a podcast about Tiger or about Joe Exotic about a year ago, and it was crazy fascinating. And so that was what made me interested in watching it. But when I can't just sit and watch TV. I'll knit. Like I can't just like sit and look at it. I'm the worst person to take somewhere to sit still because I have to knit or like I'll spin yarn or I'll like work on I can't only be occupied in one direction, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Which is, it's terrible, but I feel like I always need to have something to show for a time, if that makes sense. So like through Tiger King, I knit a pair of socks. And so it was like, oh, I watched Tiger King, but also I have these socks that I knit. So it wasn't wasted time. It was, it was structured time to do this thing. And now I'm introducing him to Dexter. So I think we just started season 3. So I'm that I tend to revisit the old shows versus watching the new ones.
I don't blame you because like if you visit the old shows, then it's all there, and you're not like
Right.
biting your nails like,
Yes.
when's second season gonna come out?
Yes, but I will say I watched Dexter live as it originally aired. Um, and it's still, I'm like stressed out. And I know that, like, obviously he makes it through these situations because there's 8 seasons, but like, I don't quite remember what happened in all of them. So I'm still, like, the other day we got to a season finale and he's like, well, bedtime. And I was like, no, I don't remember what happens next. And it's the season finale. So we're doing a second episode tonight because I can't sleep otherwise. I have to remember how it ends. So yeah, but yes, yeah, I like knowing how things end. I'm a person that picks up a book and reads the last chapter and then reads the beginning. I love spoilers. I'm the only person that I know that loves spoilers, but I want to know how everything ends.
I am too. I like the spoiler, but I mean, I think as creative people, is like we, I don't know, like I think of myself as like a creative person. Like I like that suspense, I like that drawn out, like, and I like figuring, like I can't watch a murder mystery, and I already have it like figured out too, because I've
Yes.
seen so many and I've taken in so many. I'm like, oh, that's the killer right there.
But do you ever find yourself disappointed when it's someone else and you're like, "Oh, it would have been so much cooler if they would have done it this way?"
Absolutely, but they don't pay me to write in Hollywood.
Well, that's true. But that's why I like to go to the end first, is because then I know the whole time. And so I feel like sometimes it helps me be more in the moment instead of trying to figure things out. So, if I know at the very end that this is how a character dies, then I'm not spending the whole time wondering, oh my God, is this when he's going to die? I can just sit back and enjoy the path because I know that they're going to die or I know that they're not going to die. And so then I don't have that, like, will they, won't they? I can just enjoy the flow because I know how it ends.
Interesting. I might have to try that. I might have to
It's,
just read the last chapter and then be like, okay, let's read it.
yeah, I don't know if it works for everybody, but, and obviously it's harder with bigger novels or like where there's multiple books in a series like Harry Potter or Game of Thrones, which Game of Thrones is a big gripe for me because I read the books first and the last book still isn't out and it's been 20 years. So, there's that. But yeah, so there's something very comforting in knowing that something has already ended when you've started it.
Thinking if that could be, yeah. I think we all have comfort, and so I think that's would be a big, huge benefit. I think why I like the suspense and spoilers, I guess in movies and stuff, is because like in life, if we already know how the story ends, it kind of gets boring. I mean, there's some comfort in the knowing how the story ends. We take a lot of comfort in saying like, oh, it's all gonna be okay, or this too shall pass. Like that brings us great comfort sometimes. But I mean, like when you look at the Lord of the Rings series, like Gandalf, the all great powerful person, could have just like told Bilbo, oh, hey, here's what's gonna happen. But the question I have to ask myself is like, would Bilbo ever taken that journey if he knew how it was going to happen?
So I don't know anything about Lord of the Rings.
You don't know anything about Lord of the Rings, but you know Harry Potter.
But I know Harry Potter as an adult. We had an employee that that was obsessed with Harry Potter, and I had tried a long time ago to read Harry Potter, and I couldn't. It was just too. The first book was written in a way that was just like it was too. It took too long to like get to the point. And so she had suggested that we listen to the audiobooks. And so we listened to the audiobooks while we worked. And so that was how she introduced me to Harry Potter. And I did enjoy it, but I think I crushed a lot of things for her because we'd finish a chapter and then I would like give her commentary on it. And so with, with Harry Potter, there was a prophecy. In Game of Thrones, there are several prophecies. I think there's something about knowing how it ends or potentially knowing how it ends, but also being given the opportunity to change it or feeling like you can prove that ending wrong, that sometimes is done in vain, but sometimes is done because, you see that future and you believe in it. And so you do want to take that journey.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. There's so many facets of it. I really go down a rabbit hole.
Well, I mean, obviously, as you know, my story, like, I mean, statistics say, I should be dead. It said, like, I should have gone a different path, And, I mean, the thing is like, we can take these moments and we can see where we're heading, in life sometime. But just because we see them doesn't mean that they actually have to play out,
Right.
Like, we can stop it in our tracks and say, like, this, and I mean, you having a cookie shop, I'm sure, like a sweet shop, people are probably coming in for the most like lamest of lame sweets, like you're like, I hope nobody comes in for another cupcake, because everybody knows cupcakes, right? But it's like, how do you like get to that place, like when they walk in, like you see, like, oh, I don't want a cupcake, I want this, like. Or that looks good and that looks good. I think that's really powerful in life, is that like just because so-and-so said or this was going to happen, like doesn't mean it needs to become true. We can kind of guide our own agenda, and congratulations on being a business owner, because statistically you should have already failed by now.
And that's I was thinking about that. I'm like, oh, I should have failed twice over by now. And I think that that's something really that this whole pandemic has taught me, is that if I can get through this, which I believe that we will, I have no reason to think that we won't. There is nothing that we cannot get through if we can get through this. Just because it has, I mean, when you set a business plan, you try to get creative and you try to think of all of the reasons why it can fail, but no one would have ever thought, oh, well, should I plan for a time where friends don't get together anymore? Should I plan for a time where people aren't seeing their parents anymore? Like, that's not... No one would have ever been like, oh, you've missed this spot in your business plan. You should plan for a time where children aren't allowed to have birthday parties anymore. Like, it's so unthinkable.
Mm-hmm.
And yet to see, parents get creative to still be able to celebrate their kids' parties with like these porch pickups and all of this stuff that they can do. It's been really inspiring for me, for me to have to get creative, but also to have so many of our customers and so many of our clients have gotten so creative and they're bringing these ideas to me. And so it's been really neat and really inspiring to see just how much I think everyone that I've interacted with during this time has grown in ways that they didn't think that they could, for sure.
I mean, it's definitely been interesting over here to, as a speaker, like where we ever like go, go back to, events where we can gather and I can speak, and that's how I kind of came up with this show, it was like I was getting creative and not so much focusing on what I couldn't do, but I was asking myself, what can I do? And every day throughout quarantine, especially being somebody who's immunocompromised, I know I have like tons of days ahead of me. Um, and I'm not looking for at the extrovert in me is not looking forward to any of them. But it's like more so instead of what I was talking to my friend Connor, who owns Upshot Coffee about. It's like you have to get comfortable with failure, but not get comfortable with that failure to shut down, but get comfortable with it that it's there, and it's not failure is not like final, like it's an opportunity to get more creative. To be like, okay, this didn't work, but what if, we added on to that, and I think that's one of the good things that's been brought out of us a lot in this moment, is not it's not what's next. It's like what can we do just now? We don't have to be bigger. We don't have to, make all these fancy things. We just have to figure out how we can be convenient in the time we're given now.
Yes. And I think sometimes too, whenever I've taught now at a couple kind of bakery conventions or like cookie artist conventions. And one thing that I always like to remind people is that sometimes what looks like a failure in the moment is actually just a foundation for future success. So, pretty much all of my best laid plans with SugarBot, all of my best laid plans with Little O's, when I founded these businesses or when I purchased Little O's, my plan for it is nothing like what it looks like now. So, looking from what I had set out to do, I failed at. I failed at miserably. But out of that failure came something that's way better than what my original plan ever was. So I always like to try to remind people that, what to a lot of people, they look, especially newer people in the baking industry, they look at the stuff that I've done and they're like, oh my gosh, it looks so successful. And I'm like, oh, but what you're not seeing all of the things that failed. You're not seeing, all of the times that we've struggled with getting things done or, all of the late nights and all of that stuff that in the moment feels like a failure, but it's those growing pains where you feel like everything is going wrong, but you just don't realize yet that everything hurts because you don't fit in your shell anymore and you have to move to that next shell. So I try to remember that when everything feels like it's falling down around me. Is maybe this is just a new shell.
It's kind of like that cake pop there.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, you have to
There's
go
a cake
scale.
pop in all of us.
There
That should be
is.
your book right there. There's a cake pop in all of us.
I love it.
But
Write it down.
I want to say just once again, like thank you so much for joining us today and giving us a little insight. And I really kind of want to end on that like last note. But the one question I ask all my guests here is two things. Is one, where can people find you? And more so, since you are a small business, I want to go a little bit further in that and ask, how can we help you as a small business? And then why don't we answer those, and then the final question will come up.
Yes. Okay. So before I forget, also thank you because this was so much fun. This is the most interaction that I've had with a human other than, my husband and my nephews and my sister in probably a month. So it was super fun. And so, okay, so the bakery is SugarBot Sweet Shop. We're at Jackson and 5th Street in St. Charles. And then the soda fountain is Little O's Old Time Soda Fountain, and we are on North Main, just one door south of quintessential. So both of those places, we're doing curbside as far as support goes. This weekend is curbside at Little O's. I'm really excited. We have take-home Sunday kits. So we've got waffle bowl Sunday kits and brownie Sunday kits, and then we also have single pints that you can get. And the information to do the curbside ordering is on both the Little O's Facebook page and the Sugar Bot Facebook page. So those are the best places to find things. And I'm loving doing curbside. I'm loving getting to see people still. It's a little weird to not be able to welcome people in, just because, in hospitality, that's what I'm so used to doing. And we are so proud of how our facilities look and everything that we've done to them. So it's been kind of weird to not be able to invite people in. But, I would love for, once this is all kind of back to whatever the new normal is going to be, I would love to see people in the stores again. But in the meantime, curbside is really, really helpful for us.
So for those who were listening, please go and check out Sugar Bot Sweet Shop out on Facebook and look for the times, the curbside pickup information. But do the same thing for Little O's. And this weekend, if you're listening this weekend, get ready for a take-home Sunday kit.
Yes.
And do that. And one of Will Klein said, my daughter, he's tuned in, and he said, my daughter loved the theme cookies you made for our daughter's birthday in April. So,
awesome. Yeah, I think I did Rocky Horror Picture Show inspired cookies for him.
Interesting.
They were so much fun. I love a custom request.
Yeah. Did you like make like whitey tidies as like one of the cookies?
I did black corsets. And then I did like the lips, because so those things are trademarked, so we can't do the exact. But so, oh my gosh, what was the third one? Ask Will if he remembers.
Will, do you remember what was the third one? You got the lips and the corset and the
lips and the corset. There was a third one in the set.
Oh no, he's gone.
He's gone. Well, he posted them. I'll have to look back at pictures. But they were so much fun to do. I love a good challenge.
So that's another way that we can help Jackie. She said she put the you're part of the crew at St. Andrew's Theater that puts on the show.
Yeah, I'm not, but his daughter is.
Oh, his daughter is.
No,
awesome.
I am not talented in singing or dancing.
He does not remember the cookies, but anyways, we'll have to go back. But if anybody out there has a special request for a theme that we can work around the trademark,
yes,
they can reach out to you. So I can't say I want Sesame Street cookies, but I can say, hey, I want Sesame Street inspired cookies. And I think that's a great thing that goes around with what we're talking about. We talked about today is that creativity side, is that there's a trademark. There's always you can't take that trademark, but you can get around it by, which is my favorite part of Halloween, when you have all the off-brand costumes and stuff.
Yes. Yes.
And I guess the last question I have for you, Jackie, is for what I asked all my guests on the show is, what are 3 things that could be somebody out there who's looking to get creative. It could be somebody who wants to start a sweet business, just not in St. Charles, right?
Hey, there's room for quite a few.
There's room for quite a few. There's always room, because you guys can make each other better.
Right. Yeah, you can make each other better, but also what I'm doing is so different than what anybody else here is doing. Space, if you are interested, there is space for a gluten-free bakery, and there's space for a vegan bakery, because those are things, The gluten-free, we get a fair amount of requests for. Vegan, we don't get a ton out here for, but there is definitely space in the market still.
Well, for anybody who's wanting to do that, or just people in life in general, what are three things of encouragement that you can offer?
Ooh, let's see, that's tricky. So I would say probably the first one is something that people usually kind of think as a hindrance, but it's really, to me, something positive. So just knowing that you don't know what you don't know. So a lot of times people will feel like they don't know enough, or like they're just kind of out there floundering and just struggling with things, or like they don't know enough. But because you don't know what you don't know, you should be open to kind of learning those things. And so I think that there is encouragement in that, in just knowing that there's always room to grow, and that there's always going to be somebody better than you, there's always going to be somebody smarter than you, there's always going to be somebody cooler than you. So out of the gate, that doesn't seem like something positive, but if you can embrace that, it's so freeing to know, like, I'm not the best at this, or I'm the world's okayest boss, or I'm the world's okayest cookie decorator. Like, it's what it is. There's always room to grow, and you're always going to be in the middle, but you're always going to start as the worst at something. But you're always going to be the worst at something if you don't do it. So I think that's kind of my first meandering bit of inspiration. This is a really hard question. Do people usually struggle with it as much as I struggle with it?
You shouldn't compare yourself to other people. Hey, if you asked me this, I would be like, yeah, I thought I was being encouraging. Oh, this moment, like, why are you asking me this now?
Yes, yeah. Let's see. Gosh. The second bit, I think, would be look for inspiration in places that are out of your field and out of your industry. So that is what helps me the most be creative, is just try to think of the most obvious place to find inspiration and go in the opposite direction.
Okay, I like that.
I think that's really helpful. And then I think the third would maybe be surround yourself with people that are learning. So for us, with the shops, when we're training, I tell people that the best way to learn something is to teach it. So, because it gets you thinking about things in a different way. And so you're seeing the other side of that coin. The same would be like spending time with young people, spending time with children, that kind of thing. Because a lot of times at a certain, I think it's about like 11 or 12, when you realize that other people are paying attention to what you're doing. But from like 10 and under, they have no concept that someone could be judging them for what they're doing. And they're just like doing it. And they don't care what anybody else is doing. They don't care if people are looking at them. They don't care, when they dress themselves and they walk out of the house wearing like 2 different socks and 2 different shoes and pants that don't match their shirt. And, other people are looking at them and they're like, oh, maybe they got dressed in the dark. And then, there's a kid that's looking at themselves and being like, I dressed myself and I'm wearing all of my favorite things. They're not afraid to like show, what they've got going on in their head. And I think that there's something really, really cool about not being afraid to show like what you've got going on.
I like that. My favorite outfit of choice was when actual cowboy boots and shorts.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's a look. Now, were
it's a
they
great
short,
look.
or
I don't
were
know if
they?
I could pull it off now.
You can pull off whatever you believe you pull off. If you look like you're supposed to be there and you look like this is what you're supposed to be doing, you can pull off anything. I firmly believe that. You just have to believe that you should be there and make eye contact while you're doing it too, because that really asserts dominance and it makes the other person ashamed of thinking that you couldn't do it.
Interesting.
So I've given you a fourth.
There you
Make
go. I
eye
like.
contact while you're doing something weird.
So Becky Klein just tuned in as we were like wrapping this up. So like,
Yes.
and she said it was the maid uniform, the red lips, and the corset with pearls.
Yes, yes, the maid uniform. Thank you, Becky. You're saving me from having to go back in my photos and figure out what I had done.
Anyway, so let's sum those 4 things up again. So we said the first one was find the positive of what you don't know.
Yeah.
You don't know. And then we said what you said. I didn't say this. But you said I forgot the second one. But the third one is surround people with people who are learning. And
Yes.
third, and then you gave me a fourth one.
Yes.
But what was the second one?
Oh, God. Oh, don't be afraid to learn.
Don't be afraid to learn. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're saying like get comfortable with what you don't know and
Yeah.
just admit it. And then you're saying get comfortable with learning and don't be afraid to learn and like find something that's out of your comfort zone to learn, which I wholeheartedly agree with. And then the third thing you said was surround yourself with people who are learning.
Mm-hmm.
Like don't surround yourself with people who are already like, yeah, learn from people who have been there and done that. But I feel like that is a better place to be, is like the kind of we're all in this together mentality.
Yes. Yeah. But also in learning from people, I would say be really wary of people that already think that they know everything. Because those are the people, they're not growing anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And there's something really suspicious about somebody that's not willing to grow anymore, or that thinks that they know everything that there is to know.
And then the fourth one was I like that. It was more of a networking tip. Look at people in the eye and assert dominance and say with your eyes, I'm supposed to be here.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, I'm supposed to be here, or yes, I am supposed to be wearing this weird outfit, or yes, I am supposed to be wearing these ridiculous glasses with flowers on them. Like, just, yeah. Take comfort in doing something, and you just have to sell it.
And somebody was really so kind to remind me. She said, look for inspiration in other fields.
Yes, look for inspiration in other fields. There we go. I was picking up on number 3. Sometimes I say things and I don't remember what I've said.
That's okay. That's why we have this video now that we can go back and look at it. And I'll be making fun of myself, but I'll be like, Jackie did the best job, like, because I don't know how to do it.
Well,
but,
you did good questions, a good stump there at the end.
So once again, Jackie, thank you so much for joining me. And for those who are listening, this is Jackie Huebbe, owner of Sugar About Sweet Shop in St. Charles, Missouri, as well as Little O's. And if you go and follow each one of those on Facebook, you actually see that they're doing curbside pickup. And please just watch out for when they're doing that. And this weekend, you can get curbside pickup at Little O's for Sunday Kit.
Yes,
And
thank you so much. That was like the best, most thorough plug. I love it.
but anyways, everybody, my name is Brry Jackson, and thank you for tuning in. And this is the one where the cookie crumbles.
Yes. Thank you guys so much. I'll talk to you soon.